Blessings, fam.
What's going on, everybody?
Hi, everybody. It's me, Essence.
And Leonard.
And we're back with another episode of Love and Honor. Love and Honor.
Yeah, we're back to that.
So happy, whatever day you're watching this.
Yeah, happy today.
I hope you guys are having a blessed day.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not great, I pray that it gets better. So, what are we talking about today? Today, we're talking about, do you know what we're talking about?
I just think it's funny how you said what we talk about today, and then you answered it.
Okay, tell me what we talking about.
We are talking about about marriage is hard, and then I can't read the other part that you have listed there because it's cut off. But the challenge. Yes,
it's a challenge that I saw on TikTok, and like when I was looking at it, I was like, people don't get it. Like some people get it. I feel like if you know, right? But let me explain what the challenge was. So it was a person who's not married. And then people were stitching this TikTok and they were like, okay, for those of y'all who are married, tell me why marriage is hard. Why you say marriage is hard. And she was like, stitch this and then answer it. And so you see a whole bunch of videos and it'll be like her talking and asking, and then they'll just show a shirt on the floor. Or one woman was like, she showed a shoe next to the shoe rack. The other shoe was up, the other one was there, and she was like,
it clearly fell down.
Or not. And so it's a whole bunch of that, right? But it was like a whole bunch of different things. And then like you would have people on there who were talking about why marriage is hard and stuff. And one of the things that stood out to me, I just think it's fun, Mm-hmm. But for people who are not married, I was like, will they understand? Will they be like, what's the big deal? It's a shirt on the floor, Yeah. But then I was like, I feel like there needs to be some kind of, let me explain these, because like I don't think people would understand what is being said in that picture, like why marriage is hard. Because to me, like that's not hard, that's just irritating, And the thing is, it's like when you're married to someone, there's so many things, and yes, a shoe being left out or a shirt on the floor being left out is one thing, but I think from my view is when you tell your spouse something like over and over again, and they're like, yeah. Like, okay, I heard you. You already said that. But then it happens and then it continues to happen. Like, and you're like, okay, well, that's what's hard. It gets irritating because you have to choose your battles, right? Mm-hmm. Like, do I make a big deal about this shoe, which some people do? I saw this one girl on social media who her husband would always leave his shoes in random places through the house. And so she always would trip over them just because they're like not where they go. And she would be like, I love my husband every time. And I was like, look, bless her heart.
She was looking out for
her. She was speaking life. Yeah. Okay. She was being positive.
Yeah.
Do you think that could be interpreted the wrong way when people see that challenge? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think anything could be interpreted the wrong way. I think it sounds from what you're saying like a lighthearted, challenge, not really meant to cause any strife is what it sounds like. But, I haven't seen it. So, yeah.
Yeah. It seemed fun.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like something fun just to like laugh and poke fun at some of the things. Like, because marriage is, I never usually use the word that marriage is hard. Mm-hmm. I say it like I'd be like, marriage is hard. Like when I'm talking about it, that's what I say.
Same thing. Just like heavy weights aren't for the weak.
But it is. So let's talk about that.
Oh, you took a switch there.
Because heavy weights are for the weak, right?
Yeah.
That's so we can build strength.
Fine. I see.
So let's take it there.
Interesting.
So yeah, talk about that.
Talk about how weights are for the weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, lifting weights. The thing is, though, when you're lifting weights, you don't start with the heavy ones. Though.
Of course not.
And it seems like, what's really heavy, when it relates to that shoe on the floor? You know what I mean? So
it's the constant. Okay, so the shoe on the floor, I don't think is heavy. I think that's just like he left his shoes on the floor. When you've been married for X+ years, right? It don't even matter. And it's a continuous conversation and it doesn't feel like it's being resolved regardless of the communication that's being had or however anyone reacts, because somebody can react negatively. Someone can react positively. Somebody can react silly in a silly way to convey their message. Like, I think it's just like okay, we talked about this. This is a lighthearted conversation of it, but I think it could be with anything. Like if it's the same thing and you're talking about the same thing over and over again, does it get to a point to where some people be willing to give up and be like, you know what? I'm not heard. No one's listening to me. And they be ready to really end their relationship, their marriage, because they feel unheard, unseen over. And it could be, you know how in Song of Solomon, it tells us the little foxes spoil the vine. I think that if the vine is the marital relationship and the little foxes are all those little things that people never feel are big enough deals to make something happen, when it gets to a point to where you're like, you know, I can't take it anymore. Yeah. And now you done spoiled that vine. You've ended, like people are willing to end their relationship over things like that, like small things that build, and they just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, because even if you hold your arms out for an extended period of time, after a while, those arms are going to start getting heavy, and it's the weight of those arms that can, make you want to put them down. So I get what you're saying, that it doesn't have to be like a big thing. It's those little things. I also think that it's twofold. I think that what we focus on, we see more. Excuse me. Just like, say, for instance, when you get a new car, right? And you've never seen this car on the road before, but now that you have a new car, it's at the forefront of your mind. You're seeing that car everywhere. You know what I mean? So I think that when we focus on something, sometimes, and I'm not saying it's the case always, but sometimes it makes it seem like that's more than what it is. And it is easy. On the flip side of it is the shoe on the floor. Sometimes maybe he does put the shoe away. Sometimes maybe he doesn't. But when you're focusing on the times he doesn't put the shoe away, then that's what you're focusing on. You know what I mean?
Because it's not away.
Yeah. But no one's perfect. Sometimes the shoes don't get put away. But sometimes they do. But no one ever talks about the shoe that got put away. It's always the shoe that didn't get put away that gets the attention.
I don't know. I hear you. I get it. I get what you're saying. I feel like I get that it's two parts to look at that. But one is like, if it's something like, because we were talking about like the little foxes that spoil the vine. I believe that if it's something that's a continuous, like a slow dripping, eventually it's going to cause damage. You can act like, oh, let's just focus on these good things. But if there's still the things that are the slow drip that keep coming, it's going to cause damage if it's not addressed, if it's something that's constantly happening. And so, yeah, we're talking about like a shoe on the floor or a pair of pants right next to the hamper, or because those are the things, like if you look it up, those are the things that you see. It'll be like, one guy put his socks, he threw them in the hamper and it landed outside the hamper and he just left it there. Or he took off his pants and left them in the bathroom by the toilet and walked off, or just stuff like that. And she was like, but it'd be different people though. It'd be a whole bunch. And yeah, this stuff is small, but let's pretend it's not just the pants on the floor, or it's not just, because I mean, to some people that could be it. That could be enough. But like, let's say it's a repeated conversation that you keep having, or you've expressed something to your spouse and they constantly are like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it. Or, yeah, this is important to me, but there's no change. I don't think you can look at those. Well, you can look at those situations. Well, what about the good times, that all these things that I'm doing right? Because I'm not saying anyone should focus on the bad and overlook the good. But what I am saying is sometimes those heavy things need to be addressed because people like feel unheard. There's like a result of it. That's what I'm saying. And as I talk to people who like vent and just, they keep it real about, you want to talk to people. I believe if you're having first of all, I think you need to talk to God. That's always first. I believe you need to talk to your spouse. If you feel that you're in a place and you're like, I can't talk to myself, you should never feel that way. But I mean, we humans are humans, right? So if you ever feel like that, you need wise counsel. You need friends or people that you can talk to who are sounded like biblically sound and will give you the right kind of advice if you're a Christ follower. I think if you're not a Christ follower, you need somebody who's biblically sound and going to give you some real good advice.
Yeah, listen, the principles of God work.
Yeah.
Period. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. So like if if someone's coming to you and they're like, oh, he always leaves his pants on the floor. You're like, okay, you can say, oh, well, what are the things that he does right? And they can talk and leave you about all the things that they've done right. But then they go home and then those it keeps happening. Yeah. Or it just keeps happening. Or you could have verbalized like, hey, can you please do this or do that? And then it's just not being done. Like, of course, that's going to play on somebody because it can affect you differently. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, it's just pants. I think we see that and we're like, aha, that's funny. And it is what it is. Like, it happens. That's marriage. Like, people be doing stuff. Like, I'm sure Leonard tells me stuff that I don't do and vice versa. But I think that it's the part where I'm telling you something constantly and it's not being addressed. Bigger than I don't want to belittle anybody's issue. You know what I mean? So I don't want to belittle anybody with someone leaving something on the floor. Like, if they're the only person who's doing something and then it's constantly like that, I get why that would be a problem. You know what I mean? Because they're like, what are you contributing? Like, are you making it harder for me? Like, what are you doing? But at the same time, I think we shouldn't overlook the good things. That is important. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're overlooking the good things and you only focus on the bad things, then everything's going to be bad. You know, and that's not even biblical for us to. God tells us to focus on the things that are lovely and pure and good. So if you focus on the negative all the time, you're gonna have a negative attitude. Mm-hmm. You're gonna be looking at your spouse with a negative eye,
and you're gonna be looking for the negative.
I don't know, but or they can see, because I see both sides of it. I guess I think that you can be looking for the negative, and I think you can also be looking for the positive, and then they can continue to do the negative, and then you trying to look for positive, and you're constantly focusing on that, and then God's like, you're constantly dying to self, and then eventually you're like, you know what? I'm tired of these pants. I'm gonna just get rid of all of them. I don't know.
You're pantsless? It's crazy.
I have no idea. But like we're talking about pants, but I think it could be other things. I think it could be more serious things. Like, because when you're with someone, when you're married to somebody, it's not like sometimes the world treats marriage as if it's not a more serious relationship than just casually dating. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, well, then you're going to be in trouble, because you're like, well, we could just break up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, there's people who actually want to put in, they want to make it work. And they don't want the little things to be big deals. But how do you make it so that the little foxes don't spoil the vine? You just focus on the good and just you know what I mean? Like, okay, so forget all the stuff that they're doing that irritates you, or that they say that they're going to do differently, but they don't. Like, how do you address it? Because, and I'm saying it, and I think this is a really important discussion, because when I talk to people, they be ready to like end it because of a lot of smaller things, or it could be big things, but it'll be like, we constantly had this conversation. It keeps happening. It keeps coming up. And it's like, they're not doing it. And they feel the result of that is them feeling unheard, unseen. They feel that their spouse doesn't care. Why would they, if they cared, why would they? It has all these assumptions, and they talk about it. Mm-hmm. And people's intentions can be good, but it causes so many problems. Because then in that sense, you're like, well, then just pick up the sock. But I know it's not that easy, because sometimes people don't even see it, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I agree what you're saying. And I feel like I still see both sides of it. I feel like you should communicate it, because especially if it's something that you're dealing with, right? It's something that you have a problem with. Mm-hmm. I definitely don't think anyone should ever have to hold that in and not communicate it. So absolutely communicate it. I think the challenge is to not allow the outcome to weigh too heavily on you, right? And then because sometimes as a spouse, you try to do the things, right? And sometimes you do it and you can end up feeling unappreciated because you're trying and you're doing it, but every time you don't do it, then it's a problem. And you're like, man, I be doing it. Like, every time I don't do it, it's a problem. Like, you can feel as that spouse unappreciated and unheard. Mm-hmm. So it's both sides of that story.
What's the solution?
I think communicating it, but praying that God would take the weight of it off of you.
Praying first. That's why prayer is always first. Start with prayer. Always start with prayer. So when you look at that sock on the floor, or you look at that shoe right next to the shoe rack, or you look at those pants by the toilet, then pray and be like, Lord, let this not be a big deal to me.
Yeah. You know who I blame? Kobe.
The husband.
I blame Kobe, because I take off my clothes and I shoot it into the basket. I'm like, Kobe, but I be missing sometimes. And
you just leave it.
Well, no, I pick it up usually, don't I? I don't have clothes near there.
Yeah, you do.
That's not my issue. I said I don't have any issues. That's not the one.
Well, you do that. You don't leave it by the hamper.
Yeah, if it goes to the hamper,
it's going around the house.
It'll be next to my bed, because I take my short. Well, this is a lot of information for YouTube, but
you close down. You leave stuff downstairs.
Occasionally.
No, it's like often. And then the kids do it, and then
the kids
trickle down effect, and then their shoes and your shoes be downstairs. and stuff. Yeah.
I leave my workout shoes there on purpose.
Yeah. So anyways, no, but like what okay, so if a person okay, yeah, close. If a person is feeling like they're not being heard, how do you rectify that? Like if you're the spouse who they feel okay, your spouse, and I believe that I'm heard. My thing is not my thing, but my thing in understanding is like, okay, if a person's being hurt but their spouse hears them and then the stuff keeps happening, then what? Like, because the goal is to have clear communication with each other, but we grown. And like, how do you don't want to make your spouse care about the things that you care about if they don't? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to make your spouse. I feel like sometimes we do want to make our spouse like
into us,
clean up after themselves, not into us, clean up after themselves. Because, well, with me, for example, like if I'm cleaning the house already, right? And you're working, which is valuable. If you come home and just leave things everywhere and you're like leaving things and not helping, it's like, oh, so I guess I'm supposed to be working all the time and clean up after you too. Because like, does that mean that like why would you feel that you should leave it out because you know I'm gonna clean it? Is that like that makes me think my mind goes there. Like, so I guess I'm supposed to clean it. You know what I mean? Like I clean up after, but then like when it's certain things that you're like, well, is this because am I supposed to do this or what? You know what I mean? So
I can't speak for every husband out there, but I don't think that's something that's in their minds.
No, but I mean, like people's minds go places like that, and I know that it's not just me because people talk to me, and I'm like trying to be encouraging and everything. I'm like, girl, but I mean, everybody's feelings are valid in this. Your feelings are valid, my feelings are valid. You know what I mean? But when the communication doesn't happen, a person's mind will go where it goes, and that's just the truth. Not really. I'm doing air quotes, but they're assumed truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not necessarily truth, but that's how people feel because they're like, well, if it's not happening and I've said something, then maybe that's just how they feel. You know what I mean? So like we don't want that to happen and we're all grown. So how do you fix a situation? Cause like, yeah, I said that, but I mean, people be having serious stuff where they feel unheard. This is a good example, but I don't think this is not, you know what I mean? It's deeper than that.
This is surface level of the stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we should pose the question, how does God handle it? So when we do things that God doesn't want us to do and we do often, he forgives, right? Doesn't mean that we need to continue to do those things as the people. We need to try and become holy, right? It's a process. We continue to put forth our effort, but our job as the other spouse who feels that way is to forgive. And your job as a person who's making your spouse feels that way is to continue to try.
So suck it up, buttercup.
And do better, Sketter. I don't know. I was trying to rhyme.
But yeah, no, that's not my phrase. It came from something like a movie or something. Okay. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Communication is key, but I don't know who can we have on the show. Like communication is key, but what do you do when your spouse is not? They hear you, but that's the extent of it. You know, like what do you do then? What do you like when you guys are in situations like that where you're sharing something with your spouse and you're like, you want to be heard and they're not hearing you? Like, what's the solution? Like, how do you recover from that? Because what happens is a spouse will feel undervalued, not appreciated. And then what I've noticed is sometimes, you know, in talking to people is people get defensive and then they don't hear you. So it's not that they actually heard you. They were busy being defensive about what you were saying instead of like taking it in. Like, so instead it was like as if they were being attacked and then they don't want to make any changes because of that. So then nothing will ever happen because you guys are on two different pages.
Yeah.
You're attacking. So they're receiving that as attack for whatever reasons you could have made them feel. And they, in turn, don't hear you, but they hear you. They act like they hear you. And then they shut down. So they're really not listening to you because they feel attacked.
Yeah. I think with that, approach matters. Like you always say, make sure you're praying before you have these conversations. I keep going back to it, but I also feel like, you know, the other person might have a different viewpoint than what you have of the situation. And because their viewpoint they may feel a certain kind of way because of your viewpoint. Like, you know, you see the way you see it, right? And then that person sees it the way they see it. And sometimes those two don't add up. There's always three sides to a story. One side, the other side, and then the truth, right? There's always some sort of middle ground. And we feel our viewpoint is more valid a lot of times, not everyone, but a lot of times because it's our viewpoint, right? So we understand our viewpoint. It's your viewpoint I don't understand. So that must be the problem. It has to be you. So
interesting. My thing is it's important to pray. My solution to a lot of things is like communication. When people like share things with me regarding their relationship, a lot of the times it's always easier when you're on the outside and you are hearing, and you have to be careful with people coming to you with information because it's going to be their view. Unless you're talking to, you know, both parties or whatever. If you're talking to one person, then it's their view. So you have to be careful on the things that you're saying and what you're feeding into that as well, in my opinion. However, when you're talking to individuals, I believe we need to be mindful that your views are different. And there are things that you probably could be doing differently as well. And there's things that they could be doing differently as well. One of the things that I heard all the time when we were in marriage ministry, what we would hear from some of the other leaders that were in the ministry would be like, but what can you do differently? So like with me, when there's stuff like that, I just be trying to tell myself, Essence, just pick it up. Don't make a big deal about it. Essence, whatever. And I just don't address it. And I think that's like when I try not to address it. I try not to make a big deal about certain things. But when, like, if it's something that continues to happen though, that does get irritating regardless. Like, it's still going to be like, even though like you could be trying to have the best attitude, you could be trying to be so positive. That's why. And with doing that, it's important to know that we can't do anything on our own. And that's why we need Jesus, because in our own power, we're going to be frustrated, irritated, and upset or angry or whatever feelings we're feeling. But when you have God, he can help you be calm in the midst of a situation where you would be riled up in, right? And so it's important to, even with the small things, to pray, because those little foxes can be things that mess up the whole relationship. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we are being mindful that we can't do it without God. Not just the clothes thing. Like it's bigger than that. So I keep saying that because the example that I keep using. But with God, we can conquer anything.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's very important for us to keep in mind when we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with, challenges in a relationship, challenges with communication. But back to when I was saying that I talk to people, my go-to is usually, especially if they can communicate clearly what is going on. You're like, did you tell them that? Have you guys communicated regarding that? And they'll be like, yes, they're not hearing me. They're like this. That's what causes the problem. To be honest, it's not even the problem. It's the fact that they've communicated the problem and it's not changing because now they're feeling unheard. They're feeling like, well, my spouse doesn't love me. My spouse doesn't care about me. They don't care about my feelings because this is like, I'm telling them all of this. And then I'm like, well, like, I don't even really like, other than let's pray, we're going to trust God that he touches the entire situation. You need to speak with him and try again and pray first. You know, maybe y'all can pray together. Like, it's hard when it's people who don't believe at all, because in what basis do you have, you know? But my first is like prayer and then communication. So if you don't communicate, or if you are communicating and one party's not hearing it, I would take you back to prayer.
Yeah. I feel like if a situation like that arises and it makes you question your relationship, right? Makes you question whether or not your spouse loves you or whether or not they care about you. I think there's a bigger situation than that situation, right? I think that we need to, the forefront of the relationship needs to be us knowing that we love and care for each other. So I feel like there has to be something deeper in that situation. If you feel like they don't love you or care for you because they've not responded to what you made known to them.
Well, I think that attributes to why they wouldn't also, right? Like, okay, if you're constantly telling somebody something and they're like, either, okay, I'm gonna do better, but then they don't, or you're constantly telling someone something and like they're not coming through on whatever it is, or you're constantly telling them something that bothers you and they're like, yeah, I hear that bothers you, but I disagree, or to me, it's not a big deal. How does a person feel that they can trust that? Like, you don't come through when you say you're going to, or you tell me you're going to do something, but you don't do it, or I'm trusting you with my emotions in this situation and you're making it so it's not valid. Like I feel like it can be a result, like the reaction of when someone is laying something out. Like it doesn't have to be something, it could be anything. But if a person is like coming to you saying, when you do this, it makes me feel this way, and they're constantly telling you that, and you're like, I hear you, that's not what I think. But they're like, but your actions, like whenever you do X, Y, and Z. Because I feel like just because a person feels something, it matters because that's how they feel. However, it doesn't mean that's what you meant by it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's the point that I'm getting at. Like, I don't think for a husband who loves his wife, his intent would be to make you feel that way, even though that's a consequence of what he's doing or not doing. I think the intent matters, but also the feelings matter too. So it is, like I said, it is both sides of that.
Yeah. I just think that when we are communicating with our spouse,
excuse me,
there's multiple things. One is, don't take your relationship for granted and think that somebody won't get tired of you, because we shouldn't just be getting tired of folk. We married. You're going to get on each other's nerves. That's normal. You're going to have disagreements. That's normal. You are not going to be on the same page all the time. That's normal. You guys are two different people who have come together to become one, right? You're still who you are. God is blessing and changing it all. He's changing you to be transformed into who he's creating you to be. But when it comes down to it, like, you're two separate individuals who have come together as one. And so there's going to be things that you do that I may not be feeling, I'm not feeling, and vice versa, right? But we can't take our relationships for granted and think that, one, if they don't do what I say, it's a problem. Or two, if I'm constantly telling them something, like if they're constantly telling me something, but I don't think I need to do anything about it, or I just forget all the time, that's not going to be a problem. You know what I mean? Like, people, we have to be mindful. We don't know people's limits and what they're doing. And I'm only saying this because, like, I'll be like, no divorce, like, no. But people are open to it. It'd be Christ followers, it'd be people who aren't Christ followers. And I'm like, man, but it'd be like when you talk to them, you're like, wow, I mean, a lot of people deal with those things. So why is it in your relationship, it's, you ready to end it? But in some relationships, people are not, because they're like, I'm just going to deal with it. It's amazing. It's so sad for me to hear anyone who's having issues in their relationship, anyone who says like, oh, I'm trying, but I can't be the only one trying, or, like all these different things. But like, I don't know, I just want relationships to work. Yeah. I want marriages to work. Those statistics, you just hear stories all the time of people who you were like, oh, they have such a strong marriage. And then down the line, you're like, no, they're not together anymore.
Yeah. The key, and I think the reason why there's been people who are married for such a long time without divorce happening, right? There's no divorce that's going to happen in their marriage, is because they never quit. Like, I feel like a lot of them have dealt with the same situations, same things. There's nothing new under the sun, right? No one's perfect, even if your marriage is lasting forever. I think the key is never quitting and never stop trying.
I hear you. Yeah. I feel like that's why it'd be like, people are going to do what they want to do. But that's why I'd be like, suck it up, buttercup, because your feelings do matter, but they don't. But they do. Like, you have to make choices. You have to say, this is like, I think people just make decisions. I don't want to say don't quit, because I feel like some people could be in the relationship long term and they're like, no. And one spouse could really want it and the other one could be like, no, I'm done. Like, what do you do? Like, it's not that you've quit. You know what I mean? Somebody quit.
You can't stop somebody from quitting.
That's what I'm saying, because I don't want anybody to feel like they quit. You know what I mean? Like anything like that. But I think ultimately it comes down to a decision to either stay together or not. If you're a decision to make it work or not. So it's the same as the don't quit, but I just don't want anyone listening to feel like we're saying anything like that. We're not saying that anyone is a quitter if it didn't work out and you guys went your separate ways or anything. But I pray that marriages that are experiencing hardships are communicating openly with one another. And even if it's the little things, because like I said, the Bible tells us it's the little foxes that spoil the vine, those tiny little things, they're constantly gnawing at that vine, and then it spoils it, it messes it up, it tears it down, so it's not receiving what needs to be received. And that's what happens when you let all these little things come into your relationship. If you love the person that you're with, well, whether you do or don't, like you have, you connected yourself with this individual and you are married to this person. You guys got married for a reason. So make a decision to constantly to wake up every day and to prioritize your relationship. And if something is important to your spouse, it doesn't mean it has to be important in the sense of, oh, it doesn't need to matter to you like it matters to them, but because it matters to them, I feel that it takes work, for the ones who with the sock in the hamper, just pick up the sock. And when you see the sock by the hamper, even though it may be frustrating, I guess just pick up the sock.
And then for the man who's putting that sock next to the hamper, just pick up the sock, right? Like if y'all both plan on picking up the sock won't be there. There won't be an issue.
That's what I said first. Yeah. I said for the one who's putting the sock there.
Yeah. And then for the person who has to pick up that sock, just pick up the sock, right?
Okay. But yeah. But I really feel like sometimes in marriage, that's what maybe you need to just suck it up. And that doesn't sound positive, but me and Leonard, we have most of the time, our times are great, like, but it'll be moments where I'll be like, wow, that's irritating. Pick that up or something like that. But I mean, I have to decide, am I going to let this mess up my attitude and all that? Or am I going to just pick it up and not address it? I don't want to say something's not a big deal because to people it can be. That's why I'm like, nah, like it's because I feel like it's real easy to be like, it's just a sock, pick it up, to the other person, but it's like, it's your sock, pick it up. You know what I mean? Like it could go both ways. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we should ever do tit for tat. I think we have to. And so with me, if it's a situation like that, though, and it bothers me, I'll be like, okay, God, help me out here. Lord, help me have a better attitude. Help me to, you know what I mean? I try. Sometimes I get irritated. Sometimes I don't. I'm a regular person like everybody else. But, marriage does take work. And it's not always easy, meaning it's just easy breezy. I don't really feel like marriage is hard. I think that the situations can be irritating, like because the person doesn't do things the way that you do them, or because,
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, like, I don't really feel like it's that hard. But yeah, I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I think it just takes work. A lasting marriage isn't just going to happen without work, and I think that's why people say it's hard, because you have to do something.
Yeah.
In order for it to be successful.
That's what's meant. What's meant is that. But the fun that we're having on TikTok, because I was looking at them, I was just having a little blast looking at people leave TikToks of socks on the floor and underwear, and I was like, everybody does it, huh? No. No, but it was funny because people be ready to fight. They be mad. And I would just be looking. It's just so funny. I like laugh a little at it.
They posted it, but they really mad about the sock.
They're mad about it.
Like, this why it's so hard.
I know that's what their hand meant. You should have saw. Listen, that woman's hand, even though you didn't see her hand, if you're watching and you can see, I'm going to show you. So the sock is on the floor and she's like, and the hamper's like this close to it, right? No, the shoe rack's here and the shoe's on the floor right here. That close. And she's like, I felt it in the face. Can you do this without the aggression of the hand says enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So ultimately, I believe it comes down to one, prayer. It's always prayer. Prayer is always number one. Mm-hmm. Seeking God and asking for him. Because God could be working something out in you. And he has your spouse continuously doing something. And he's working on your patience and working on other things too. Another thing is communication. And if you feel that you've prayed and you've communicated and they're not receiving it, then revert back to prayer. You can never go wrong with prayer. But then trust God's got it. Mm-hmm. Trust God's going to touch the situation. Trust God can fix any deeper things that may be more than just the sock. Because I feel like it's a trickle. Like, I feel like the sock causes more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But that's been another episode.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Boo?
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the TikTok challenge, I thought it was interesting. Only because I was like, I feel like people who are not married, when they look at this, they're like, okay, why are you showing a sock? And I was like, if you know, you know.
Yeah, I wonder how people who are not married view it.
I think they're like, is that the hard part of marriage? I'll be fine.
Sign me up.
Right. And then they get in and they be like,
oh, it's not just a sock.
Yeah, I get it. Or it is, but it's always a sock. You know what I mean? So always, every day it's a sock. But no, I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was fun though. TikTok and their challenges, let me tell you, they be getting you caught up. You be looking at it, you be like, whoa.
That's why you be up all night.
Yeah, that is why. But I've been working on it. Last night I went to bed earlier.
Look at God.
Yeah, I'm working on things. God has been revealing some things to me. So that's been another episode of Love and Honor.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You guys stay blessed, and we will catch you next time.
Peace.